Did you know that Zoro is already the world's greatest swordsman? Maybe. It depends on a lot of stuff, like things. But after almost 25 years of being alongside this man on his journey to become the best at the swinging of the sharp metals, it would seem that he's finally here. Hello and welcome to the Grand Line Review, your source for everything One Piece. My name is Liam, and despite owning a lot of sharp metal, I don't often swing it. I feel like I'd end up breaking a lot of things, like say me. But someone who does not fear breaking themselves is Zoro. In fact, he once voluntarily decided to cut his own feet off after getting stuck in an awkward wax candelabra. And if that is not a viral YouTube title and thumbnail, then I don't know what is. But Zoro is the hardest of the cores, and right now there is very little stopping him from assuming the crown of world's greatest swordsman. How is this going to happen? Probably by winning a sword fight. When is it going to happen? Soon? How soon? Very. And in fact, there's even an argument to be made that he has already become the world's greatest swordsman, which I will argue for you, but first, here's some people. Dr. Knife, Mr. Very Cool, and Gum Wizard, each of whom did the amazing thing of pressing the subscribe button for the Grand Line Review, which will result in consistent injections of One Piece culture being administered directly into your YouTube feed. And if you'd like to be our next subscriber of the day, then hit the button and please do say hi in the comments below if you are a new member of the Grand Fleet. Welcome. Alright, Zoro. He's a guy who does things. And we're going to accurately assess where he falls on the things scale, because swordplay is actually a fairly easy recipe to bake. And I am terrible at baking, so this ease excites me more than it should. Now, where we start is at the very bottom of the swordamid with people who swing sharp metal. They are swordsmen through technical definition alone, being that they are men who have held swords. Like say Spandam, for example. He uses a sword, but he doesn't particularly understand what he's doing, as shown when the sword becomes an elephant. And no, Spandam, no, your sword is not supposed to be an elephant. Or Johnny and Yosaku, by virtue of their failure at life in general, but within that life, very specific failure at being sword people. Then the next tier we have our blade enthusiasts, characters who actually understand and respect swordship, but who still aren't wildly amazing at it. At the lower end, you have existences like Hachan, Pell, and Chaka, whereas the upper end of the enthusiast tier, we'd find people such as Tashigi, who is pictured here sticking her butt into Zoro's face, which I am told is a very standard greeting amongst swordsmen. Kind of like baboons, really. Like all those times when Shanks and Mihawk met up to duel, they would first present their shiny red posteriors to the other in order to display their swordsman cred. Look, I don't make the rules, I just document them on the internet. On the next tier up, we have lesser swordsmen, which consist of high-class metal wielders who have thoroughly studied and nigh on mastered the art form, but who haven't quite gone beyond that. Examples would be many of Odin's vassals, such as say Sleepy Samurai, Fart Samurai, and even Scummy Clown Samurai. In fact, most citizens of Wano probably fall into this tier because swords are so intrinsic to their existence, much like Australians growing up with Vegemite. I would defeat any non-Australian in a Vegemite contest, no doubt. But lesser swordsmen are still lesser because they are not more than that, which wouldn't be a problem if there was no more to be had, but unfortunately there is. And it's here that we introduce our highest tier, being the true swordsmen. These are the characters who have transcended all human limits of being able to whack sharp metal into one another. This is where we find our world's greatest swordsman, Draco Mihawk, but also where we find our pirate king, Goldie Roger, and other assorted legendary names such as Silver's Ray Lee, Redhead Shanks, and High Viz Kozuki Odin, because fluorescent orange is a very bold choice. Also, Fujitora, we should probably stick him in this delicious soup as well. But now it's our job to use this scale to figure out where our current Zoro fits in. He's obviously skipping the people who swing sharp metal step, however, there is actually a Zoro that does fit into this category. Actually, two Zoros. Firstly, we have fake Zoro, whose real name is Manjaro. He's a definite metal swinging and surprisingly breast heavy swordsman. But then we also have Nisei Zoro, who is a Zoro impersonator from the game Set Sail Pirate Crew, which was released on the PlayStation 1, because the One Piece games will never not be weird. Nisei Zoro, of course, impersonates Zoro nigh on perfectly, with the singular exception of his decision to wear a bright yellow helmet, thus making his head look like a raging yellow meat sword, which perhaps Nisei Zoro uses to practice 4 sword style, and maybe even 5 under the right circumstances. In any case, we can move on to the blade enthusiast, and Zoro's dominance is on full display here as well, particularly considering he's literally defeated most of them in the series. So we're going to move on very swiftly, and where things get very intriguing is on the lesser swordsman level, because here is the official Grand Line Review hot take of the video. I think that pre-time skip Zoro would have lost to most of the characters in this tier. Each of Odin's vassals are disgustingly powerful. I mean, remember that one time when Ashura Doji clapped Jack right in his stupid clap flap. And yeah, I know this is Jack we're talking about, but the dude is also somehow worth 1 billion berries, so we should not take him lightly. Especially since mammoths apparently weighed up to 10,000 kilograms. So Jack is at least on par with Miss Valentine, who could also make herself weigh 10,000 kilos. But when it comes to the vassals, they're all roughly around the Ashura Doji level, with many of them also possessing advanced armament haki. Now, to be fair to Zoro, he was using advanced armament haki way back on Alabasta to slice him up some Mr. One. Which honestly, yes, is a bit of a retcon, but look, we'll go with it. But Zoro's major trouble is that he's more of a series of happy accidents when it comes to haki, and we will definitely encounter this more going forward. For now, post-time skip Zoro is definitely a step higher than the lesser swordsman tier, and that leaves us no choice but to plonk him in with the true swordsman. And here Zoro has some pretty shocking competition because everyone here is a name so massive that the sheer weight of being in between them would crush any standard mortal like nuts in a vice. So we now have to determine how Zoro stacks up against these dudes. And first up we have Roger, who is dead, so no problem there. Zoro would probably win under those circumstances. I think a really great comparison is shoving him directly up against Kozuki Oden though, because Zoro currently wields one of Oden's blades and has even fought one of Oden's key opponents. Alright, and here we have a spoiler warning for anime only watchers. If you don't like spoilers, which is understandable, then go to this here time thing. But for everyone else, here we go. Oden and Zoro have quite notably both fought against Kaido, thus giving us a fairly direct power-based comparison because the first character in the world to scar Kaido was Oden, and the second was Zoro. The thing that may tip the scales here is that Oden had full control of both Enma and Advanced Conqueror's haki, while Zoro is still a bit of a learner. But there is also another thing. The Kaido that Oden fought is very different to the Kaido that Zoro fought. Remember that for the vast majority of his existence, Kaido has been something of a loser, being defeated and caught 18 times before reaching the pinnacle of his strength in modern One Piece. The Oden flashback was not this pinnacle, especially when we examine Kaido's legs. In the Oden flashback, they had not yet reached that proper state of thick with 2 C's, and they were more like matchsticks that served as a rather comical metaphor for Kaido's relative fragility. So I actually think that current Zoro would be on a much more similar level to Oden, but it definitely doesn't feel right to call them equals, which again is all down to haki. Zoro is still yet to use Enma on the same scale as Oden did, and the point at which we can say that Zoro has definitely surpassed Oden is probably when he's able to turn Enma into a black blade, which has been heavily foreshadowed by Hitetsu, also known as the guy with the raging red boner nose. I imagine that he and Nisa Zoro would get along quite well actually. With that said, here's my second official Grand Line Review hot take of the video thing. Zoro still has yet to be seriously challenged in the new world. King did push Zoro to his limits, yes, but only after being mortally wounded, tanking an attack from both Kaido and Big Mom, and yes, miracle drugs, they are fun, but Zoro was still severely handicapped in this fight, whereas King was still relatively fresh. Like almost straight out of the laundry fresh. You know, like when your clothes have that nice smell? That was King, and then it very quickly wasn't. Kind of like throwing your fresh laundry straight into the mud outside. Whereas Zoro is like the reliable pair of jeans that you wash embarrassingly little because you think they don't smell, but they do, and people do notice. And I don't mean to call anyone out here, but jeans are not immune from getting dirty. So just wash your damn jeans. Yeah, I went on a slight tangent there, and I actually feel like my focus in this video is very much in line with Zoro's sense of direction, but the key issue we're tackling here is Zoro's incoming achievement of his sword-based dream. I don't think there's any argument that he is in the correct tier to take on Mihawk. He's maybe one step away, and it's all to do with haki mastery really, although it should be said that it has never been confirmed that Mihawk is a user of Conqueror's haki, but he almost certainly is. My question then becomes, when will this inevitable fight actually take place? Because it's easy to say that Zoro versus Mihawk is some sort of end of series affair, because it's Zoro achieving his dream and everything, but I'm not too convinced about that. I personally think it would be a bit off to have Luffy become the Pirate King and then later on Zoro does the thing it is that he wants to do. It would be kind of taking the stage away from our main character here. And with this, I always think about Luffy's words when he initially recruited Zoro, which change depending on what translation you've read or maybe the anime you've watched, but it's always something like this. The world's greatest swordsman, eh? The Pirate King is going to need that. Which, and this could just be my insane dude in a room headcanon, but to me it says that Zoro Zoro may need to become the world's greatest swordsman and then with that status, contribute to making Luffy the Pirate King. With that said, it's very important to note that becoming the Pirate King is not Luffy's only ambition. And in fact, over the course of the series, Oda has heavily hinted at Luffy having a second dream that can only be accomplished after he becomes the Pirate King, which I have a whole video about, and I highly encourage you to watch it with your eye things. Either way, of all of the things we can predict in One Piece, Zoro vs. Mihawk is a bit of a tricky one. Because here's the interesting thing about the One Piece, people don't often, if at all, fight each other just for fun. Whereas most shonen series do. They embark on tournament arcs or rival arcs which are dedicated to showing protagonists facing off against other protagonists and maybe some sort of legit bad guy at the end. But One Piece doesn't really have that. Fights in this series are almost always in service of plot. So for Mihawk to be anything but an end of series battle, he'd almost need to become an actual antagonist standing in Zoro's way. Or I guess more like standing in Luffy's way of becoming the Pirate King, and Zoro needs to overcome this sharp mustached obstacle for the sake of his dull rubber captain friend. Which, I don't know, I have a hard time seeing Mihawk as a bad guy, despite the fact that his facial hair is very stereotypically bad guy. I mean, bad guy obviously isn't the right word, antagonist is more the right word. Even though Mihawk seems like such a good boy though, he just wants to chill on his morbid island with a well-endowed ghost girl and a pack of combat-savvy mandrels. You know, everyone says that Mihawk has no crew, but he could easily set sail with those mandrels and become an Emperor of the Sea in probably seconds. Those things are no joke. But because Mihawk is such a good boy, this also takes us to the possibility that Mihawk will not be the final opponent for Zoro to claim the crown of world's greatest swordsman. Between now and then, a new challenger could pop up to defeat Mr. Mihawk, and there are a couple of genuine candidates for this. I mean, I say a couple, but it's more like one. Shiryu is a potential choice here because he's a very bad man, but a very good sword man. And if Blackbeard has his eye on decimating the Shanks pack, well, Mihawk is a natural ally of Mr. Red, especially now that his Warlord license has been revoked and the Warlord DMV is currently closed, thus not allowing him to procure a new one. And if I was Mihawk, I would take my monkeys and then head straight to Shanks, who would promptly say, "Dude, what's with all the monkeys? And why are they dressed like you? And hey, why is that one dressed like me?" The other pathway I find much more likely, but Fujitora, he also exists, something which I've reminded you of earlier. But as a Marine, he does present a potential final antagonistic opponent, a Marine who is hunting the ex-Warlords, by the way, which Mihawk is, and with those two things in mind, they could come into a very unfortunate state of affairs. And as a sword-wielding Marine who has a prior history with Zoro, this could definitely be a thing. However, Fujitora is also quite a good boy. He just doesn't scream antagonist material. In fact, he doesn't scream anything, unless it's screaming at Sakazuki for being a complete and utter bunglenut. But our current state of affairs is something like this. Baratie, Zoro, Mihawk. I don't even have the camera space to show you where Mihawk is. Wano, Mihawk, Zoro. So all I'm saying is that dude better watch his back as well as his front. Just like how you'd better watch this next video because there's always more to learn, explore, and experience with this wonderful series, so I look forward to seeing you there.